Hello, can you hear me? Yes. So, hello, my name's Ruth. I am... Okay, that's me. I love to ride motorbikes, so if you are a motorbike rider, come have a chat to me. But I've been working in the design field for nearly 15 years, and I was really lucky to start working designing for mainframe systems. And that's where I learned a lot about how things work or don't work. And it's been a fascinating journey. But what I'm going to talk about today is about cognitive biases, because I'm a user researcher and I'm really passionate about this space. Now, I'm really passionate, I speak really quickly, so I'm looking at those in the front row to please help me out. Say, Ruth, slow down when I get too excited. So thank you in advance. So, if I have two gift cards here, one's a $10 gift card and one's a $20 gift card, if the $10 one's free, and the $20 one is $7, hands up those that would prefer to have the free one. Okay, so we've got about most of the audience. Hands up if you prefer to pay $7 and get the $20 one. Oh, okay, so we've got about a third and so 2/3 thirds. Okay. Now what happens if it's now $1 for the $10 card and $8 for the $20? Hands up if you pay $1 to get the $10 gift card. Okay, about a third of the audience. And hands up if you pay $8 to get the $20 gift card. Okay, most of the audience. Now, what's going on over here? So like the majority of people in this particular study that did this in study in 2000 by Shepner and Arely, what they found was that most people, when you had the word free across it, would want to get this particular thing. But since you add a cost to it, the demand for it drops off. So that's this thing that blows the mind when you use the word free, right? It just makes it more in demand. So this is actually its power of free. It's actually called the zero price effect. And this is a cognitive bias, and it's well understood by marketers and advertisers. Have you ever seen that whole 2-for-1, buy one, get one free? You're not really getting the second one for free, right? It's actually paying half price. But it just seems so much more like a better deal. And this is playing on this cognitive bias. So what is a cognitive bias? Cognitive bias is a mental shortcut our brains take and helps us survive in the world, because there's just so many things that happen in our life. And to make sense of the world, our brain needs to go through a bunch of heuristics and shortcuts to get through it. And we do this to help ease the kind of cognitive burden for us. Back one. Somebody tweeted, I think it was Steve Portigal tweeted this one to me about this cognitive bias codex. This gentleman went through and actually looked through all the cognitive biases that exist on Wikipedia, and somebody visualized it, and it looks awesome. I'm not going to talk about all of those today. I'm only going to talk a selected number. But in terms of biases, this happens because we're all human. Now, they are biases lurking everywhere in our life. You can't get rid of it. It's inherent to our nature. But because, as research, we want our research to be reliable and trusted. But how do we do this when cognitive biases lurk everywhere? So, we're human, and we don't want to distort our data and our results. But if we're able to take care and always be aware of our inherent biases, we can deal with it and try to minimize the effects on our kind of projects. So what's the problem if we have the cognitive bias appear in our research? Well, one of the issues is if your project is dependent on the evidence that your team that you're producing or trying to find out, you could actually unfortunately have a misleading kind of direction to the project, and decisions can be made on this evidence we're gathering. So I want to share a story about how Coke lost millions of dollars based on really bad research. So back in the 1980s, has anybody heard of New Coke? Showing my age. Yes. So Coke did a bunch of research, and they found that taste was a big factor in what made people choose Coke over Pepsi. So what happened was they created this new product, and they dubbed it New Coke. So they went and did some market research where they interviewed and got people, I think nearly 200,000 blind taste tests. And they got people to taste it against Pepsi. And what they found was that most people actually preferred the taste of New Coke. So based on this evidence, what they did was they went out and they released New Coke, and they removed the other classic Coke from the market. And there was this massive outroar. And I think there was riots. People were calling up Coke once and go, what happened to Coke? And the executives were saying, well, we've done our research. The research shows that this is actually a better product. But what had happened was during the research process, they didn't actually tell people that this was going to be replacing Coke. Because people thought, new flavors of Coke come out. Remember Vanilla Coke and Cherry Coke, all those flavors that came out. They kind of run alongside normal Coke. So what happened? So based on this, they ended up trying to push New Coke for a while and ended up having to withdraw it from the market totally. So we're not Coke, but how do we apply it to design research? And how do we apply it across the different stages of research? So I'm going to look at a number of biases. A lot of it is mistakes that I've made over the years, and I keep making it to this day despite knowing it's all these biases. Every time I go out and I do these mistakes, I'm like, oh, God damn it, how do we fix it? So if you don't do what don't do my mistakes and you'll be fine. So in terms of preparing for research, a number of years ago, I was working with a cultural institution in Australia, and we had a really, really tight time frame and not a lot of money, probably sounds familiar, and we had to do quite quick research about the effectiveness of this online catalogue. So this catalogue can be used on your website anywhere outside of Australia, or you can use it at the library. So what we did was we did an online survey to ask about some parts of the website, and from there we actually recruited a bunch of participants. And we had a whole bunch of people put up their hands and took part in our research. And we managed to get some really interesting results. But this kind of method of doing this actually precluded a bunch of people who were actually at the library using the catalogue. So what we found was we got great results, but we had to go back out and wander around the floor and actually talk to people who were actually there at the library, because they were actually giving us slightly different results. But what happened here, is that this is actually an example of selection bias. Selection bias occurs when we have some kind of sampling where you have a non-random sample might occur. So for example, in this case, I picked a bunch of people from the online survey, and they had self-selected through this online survey. So we ended up having to go back out and find people who wasn't just through the online channel. So selection bias can also happen with times. I worked on a project where we were trying to find people and talk to them about their childcare experience. And we ended up talking to a whole bunch of parents who was around March this year. And in Australia, around the March time, something interesting happens. For those that have childcare experiences in Australia, you actually get some money from the government to help towards the cost of childcare. But around the March mark, money starts running out and the cost of childcare increases. It doesn't happen for all families. It happens for certain families in certain parts of Australia. So we actually happened to be doing our research at that point in time, and what we found was parents were having all these issues with money running out. We had to go back later on and found out, okay, this is not a problem that occurs across all parents. It doesn't occur across the entire year. But it was at the forefront of their mind because we happened to sample people at that particular time of the year. So how do we deal with it? When you're trying to recruit people to try to minimize kind of bias, you try to use multiple channels of recruitment. So for example, use a mixture, don't just use what I did, it's just online survey, but use a mixture of recruitment companies, maybe social media and trusted networks. Try to avoid professional respondents. So one day I showed up to this particular research piece, and it was a focus group, and a whole bunch of people happened to know each other. They walked in and going, oh, hi, Jimmy, and I go, hi, Nat, how's it going? I go, that's weird, how do these research people and these participants know each other? Well, they were actually doing a lot of research for a whole bunch of other companies, and they were doing this as pretty much a side job. And you want to avoid that because the kind of results you get from that can be a bit different from your everyday people. And you can do that by using very careful screeners and doing behavioural-based recruitment. So instead of recruiting just on demographics, you're going to, I want 50% of female, male, 10% in this age group, 10% in that. Have a look at what is it that you're trying to achieve. What is it you're trying to find out? And actually then recruit based on that behaviour. Now, if you're running a research session, one of my favourites is this thing called Observer-Expectancy effect. So one day I was we're looking at this paper form for parents to fill in to get a particular kind of claim, they have a claim they have to do. And there was one part of the form that we thought was pretty problematic, but the other stakeholder group didn't think it was. So anyway, we took it out to the research. I was sitting next to this lady and she was telling me about her experiences of being a parent and going through this form. And it was one of three. I was like, interesting. We hit the part of the form that we thought was going to be problematic. And then I started leaning in closer to her. I didn't mean to do that, but it was just interesting. I want to see what she's going to do when she hit that part of the form. And she saw me leaning in closer to her. It was probably a bit creepy, right? Going that close to somebody. And she started trying to talk more about that particular bit. And I was going, oh yeah, see, there's more. This bit obviously is problematic. She's talking so much more about this section compared to every other part of the form. And then she was telling me about how she went through this part of the form and had a bit of problems. I was like, oh yes, that's okay, really, really interesting. Nodding my head. And that was influencing her response about this form. So think of all the time when you don't mean to do it, right? But you go, oh, did that happen? That was really interesting. And just by doing that, people go, oh, you want to hear more about that? Okay, let me tell you more about that. And then you go to your stakeholders and go, oh, look, people had a lot of these issues around here. And, so by doing that, you're unconsciously kind of influencing our participants. And, and this kind of, doing research is actually it's a skilled art. It's really hard to try to remain neutral and to not influence what our participants are saying through kind of body language, the tone of voice that we take. So, talking about this kind of effect, for those who can't see the thing, I'm just going to read it out. So this comic says, the researcher saying, our new solution lets you store all your social media events in the cloud and manage them through one easy-to-use interface on a mobile device. You use that, wouldn't you? And the participant saying, well, I suppose so. And facilitators typing up, yes. So what does this mean? It means that the way we frame our questions in research actually really matters, and it can influence the way people respond. So in a study that was done by Loftus and Palmer back in 1974, they actually presented a bunch of motor vehicle accidents to the participants and asked participants to estimate how fast the cars were going when they smashed together. And what they found was this same question, you change one word in the question, it actually had a massive impact on the results. So in this case, we had smashed, collided, bumped, and contacted. And the one that had smashed actually had to produce the highest average number of estimations of the speed. And it just shows that just changing one word that you think might be a bit harmless can actually make a big difference in people's way of responding to you. So how do we deal with that? Well, one way is we triangulate research. So use a mixture of research methods. My favourite's always observation methods. I love observation. I love going out doing contextual inquiries, following people around and saying, wow, I get paid to do this. This is awesome. But while we're doing that, mix it up with a quantitative research as well and other kind of quantitative and qualitative research. Trying to keep positive, neutral. Now, I get very excited because I just love hearing people's stories. I'm doing research and I tend to go, whoa, and I do this, and I lean in and I smile a lot. I have to keep trying to pull back when I'm doing research to go, actually, how do I be a bit more neutral and not try to influence? And also try to avoid leading questions. Okay, so for my next bit, I need some brave volunteers to come join me on stage to help me out with this next thing. Is anybody willing to volunteer? Okay, we've got one and a front. Is there not somebody else that would like to come up? Don't worry, we're not going to do anything too scary. So hello, you are Mira. Nice to meet you. And Penny, thank you very much. Okay, so Penny and Mira, I'm going to put up on stage, and you have a look, turn around behind you. I'm going to present 3 numbers to you. And I need to have a look at those numbers, and I need to guess what the rule is to make up those numbers. Now, you can keep asking me just give me 3 numbers, if you have an idea what you think that rule is. And I'll say, yes, it meets the rule, or no, it doesn't. And then once you're confident about the rule, tell me what it is, okay? And you've got the lovely audience behind you, so if you need to call a friend, turn around and we can get in. Okay, so the numbers are 2, 4, and 8.
So I think I've got a pattern.
You think I've got a pattern? You want to say it? I'll repeat it back to you.
Powers of 2 starting at 2 to the 1.
2 to 1. So what I was saying is the powers of 2 starting with. I can say it again. I'm so bad in maths. I've got to repeat.
2 to the power of 1, 2 to the power of 2, 2 to the power of 3.
Okay.
That's the pattern I'm seeing.
That does not.
No 2 to the power of 0, so I'm not totally sure.
Okay, so that does not meet the rule. How about you, Penny?
So the numbers are doubling.
Numbers are doubling. That does not. Sorry, that's not the rule. And you're welcome to turn around and get help from the audience as well. Otherwise, we can also throw to the audience to yell out some numbers.
Anybody got suggestions of other rules, or are we suggesting what number might come next?
No, you're going to tell me what the rule is, but you can keep throwing numbers to test what the thing is. So, can you say that again? Increasing by 2, then 4, then 6. That's not the rule, but thank you for thinking. We've got. So those in here is 2 times. 2 times the number to get it.
4 and 8. Oh, okay. So you've got an equation in there. 2 times 4 is 8. So that's why there's 3 numbers. Is it the first number times the second number equals the third number?
Okay, so that's not the rule.
So we're not going to add any more numbers into our sequence. We add.
You could add another number.
You come next.
You could put 16. That's cool too, but that does not make
Okay.
I could say 16. You were saying even numbers. That's not the rule. Another one up. Oh, same rule. Number of holes. That does not make the rule. Are you guys? Have you got it?
It's not the number 248.
Nope. I think the audience are happy to help as well if you want to go through them. Numbers are halving. No, that does not make the rule.
Reverse alphabeticized.
Ooh, I love this audience. There's so many creative stuff here. This is great, but no, that does not make the rule. Oh, nice one. No, that does not make the rule. I wish that's a good one. We've got one more person with their hands up. No, it took 8 full hours. Is it 8 full days? It does. The numbers actually follow a particular rule, and it's not that one.
Should we give up? Yeah, I think we're giving up.
Okay, one last. We got one last thing over. Cat. Interesting, but not the rule. Okay, so the rule, if we don't have any more takers, this rules actually that each number should be larger than the previous number. So when most people did this test, and can I say thank you very much, Penny and Mary, for your help in coming up here. When they did this experiment, what they found was most people had a hypothesis in their head, and they would quote a number, and they'll say it's not the rule. Yes, it makes the rule. No, it doesn't make the rule. So what's going on over here is that most people are trying to confirm a hypothesis in their head, right? You've got an idea of what you think is going on, and you'll find evidence to back that up. So this is actually the Watson's rule discovery, where they find that most people do not actually try to disprove the hypothesis. And in research, it's quite dangerous when we're just confirming our hypothesis. And I do this all the time by mistake. So this is an example of a confirmation bias. It's my favorite cognitive bias because it happens everywhere in life. And it's also one of the hardest biases to deal with. So confirmation bias, it is a very dangerous one because it's all about confirming your belief. So have a look at this comic. So how many times have we done, at research, you're going, we know the problem. Oh, look, got evidence. It matches. So this, the trickiness of this, that you start having problems occurring, like cherry-picking your data or going, yes, we knew this is the problem, and guess what? It was the problem. So many times have we done that with our stakeholders, or stakeholders do. They go, look at this evidence we've got. So how do we deal with it? Well, one of the main things is we make sure we take the opposing view. So in that test we're doing the numbers, we have a hypothesis and we try to confirm it. How do we disprove it? So I had one person in another conference that actually said he actually did a negative number sequence actually, which I thought was a really interesting. But yeah, you take the opposing view and see how we can actually try to find the opposite and try to find information that disproves what we know. And that's part of this one here. So don't just confirm your hypothesis, see if you can prove it wrong. And one technique you can do is something called analysis of competing hypotheses. I won't go through it in detail today, you can look it up, but it's just a really good example of every bit of research you gather and the evidence. You actually go through against each hypothesis and see how your evidence matches up against each hypothesis. And you're doing it kind of line by line. And it just tries to help minimize that kind of bias. So what else you can do is it's really important to list assumptions before you start your research project, because it helps us work out what do we think we know and versus what we actually find out over the course of the research project. Now, be skeptical, especially if everyone agrees with you. So if you go out and do your research and all participants say, oh, this tool or service is the most awesome thing they've ever seen, you're going, oh, okay, that's great, right? Oh, but you say something else that plays with the questions we're asking. Just make sure we're skeptical. Remain open to new evidence. Now, this one's actually really hard because as you're going through, especially over the life of your project, you start narrowing down on your solution and you're finding evidence about how this is working, you're tweaking your solution each time. Then when something else pops up that makes you need to switch directions, it's actually really, really hard because you've invested so much of yourself and your team into this particular solution. It's hard to remain open to new evidence. it's quite easy to say, oh, that person's just a bit of nothing on the side there. I don't think it's reflective of everyone with research. So, yeah, tricky. Also, try to consider all evidence equally. It's harder when you've got the hippo thing happening, right? The highest paid person's opinion matters. So how do we make sure that it doesn't matter where people sit in the organization and who we're talking to, how do we consider all that evidence equally? Now, one of the great things I like doing is using multiple researchers when we do it to help deal with this confirmation bias, because we all look at things differently and have different perspectives. And having multiple people involved actually tries to minimize some of this. And finally, I think with confirmation bias, leaving your ego by the door is one of the most important things, because often we, so much of our time is invested into this particular evidence, it's really hard to go, oh, something else has happened, maybe I was wrong. Okay. The next bias I'm looking at is the groupthink and bandwagon. So this is when you're doing kind of a lot of group work or focus groups. It's the effect of people trying to, or the tendency to do lots of things because other people are doing it. So I'm just going to show a quick video.
So you walk into an elevator and naturally you turn and face the door, right? It's just what we do without even thinking. All right, in the blue t-shirt, that is Nadia. She is an innocent passerby. Has nothing to do with this. Everybody else in that elevator, they all work for Would You Fall For That? They are all in on the experiment. They are all purposefully facing the wrong way. Nadia is facing the front. You can just see the back of her head, wearing the blue t-shirt, that's Nadia. She is facing the front of the elevator like a normal human being. Everybody else is facing the back. We're playing this to you in real time, no editing, as it actually happened. Okay, floor 2. Rebecca gets off, Emily gets on, she also works for us. We're swapping people in and out to reinforce the behavior. Emily's acting like it's the most normal. Oh, Nadia's turned. Nadia, okay, her bag is slipping off her shoulder. She's nervously playing with it. Nadia's now halfway round. Will she go any further? Emily gets off, Mike gets on. Again, Mike works for the show. Presses his button, faces the back like it's the most normal thing in the world, like he does it every day. Nadia is really feeling the pressure right now.
I'm not going to see anyone else.
Isn't he on
Scott's making some small talk.
He was on celebrity rehab, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
She's looking towards the back of the elevator because everybody else is. Floor 4.
I love the guy.
4th floor, Mike gets off. Lauren gets on. Lauren also works for us. She's in. Oh, and Nadia has gone. The 4th floor, Nadia has turned all the way around. She's looking at the back of the elevator. That is not normal human behavior. Nadia is looking at the back of the elevator purely because everybody else is. Okay, you've seen it in real time. Let's play that for you again in fast forward. Nadia, turning, turn.
We nearly tried that last night at the drinks, I think. I'm running out of time. I'm going to go through quite quickly. But in terms of dealing with it, if you're going to do focus groups or kind of group activity, trying to get around this kind of behaviour means we should really try to have a bunch of exercises that deals with both individual and group kind of activities. Because that way you can try to get you can get people's preferences early when they're a bit shy as well. So there's a range of other things as well. Do some of the devil's advocate role to question assumptions, and that will actually help with group kind of work. Okay, I'm going to rip through the last few ones. So in terms of analysing, as humans, we're really, really good at finding patterns, even when patterns don't exist. So this is actually called, in cognitive science, it's called epiphania, when we find patterns in random kind of data and we think it's really, there's meaning to it. So in this example, can you see what's in here? Right, it looks like you've got maybe Jesus and toast and Virgin Mary. So this, actually I think the Virgin Mary actually sold for $28,000 back in 2004. But this shows that we're really good at finding patterns and when it doesn't exist. And this happens in our research as well. We might think we find patterns and we report on them, but it actually may not be a pattern. So just something to keep in mind. So this is actually part of this thing called clustering illusion and reporting bias, where we actually see a bunch of patterns in very small sample sizes, and when we go, oh, that must apply across the board to everyone else. And the problem with that is that it may not be true. So we need to make sure that we deal with that with, considering all evidence equally and understanding the why behind things. Even if you've got small sample sizes, that's fine, but we need to understand why something's occurring. I really love using collaborative analysis sessions where you get together and you analyze all the work together, because everyone's bringing this different perspective to help against this kind of clustering illusion. Okay, so in terms of how vulnerable are we to these biases, is that we think that percentage of people who are more, that more people will be biased than the average population, and so 50% should be more biased, right, than the average. But in a study conducted by psychologists at Stanford University, what they found was when they asked 600 people in the US, more than 85% of people said, "Oh, I'm less biased than the average Americans." But the reality is that this is an example of blind spot bias, that we are very good at spotting biases in other people, but not in ourselves. And this affects all our research as well. So how we get around this is actually listen with an open mind and become more rational, but less rationalizing. And also go through this whole continuous learning kind of mindset, because it helps us just constantly reassess who we are, what our methods are, and also look out for biases in ourselves. So at the end of the day, remember, we are all human. Biases are inherent, it's inherent in us, but if we can be aware of it, we can actually deal with it. And this is actually a UX Australia, the very first one in Australia. And we don't have time for questions, unfortunately, but come and see me in the break. Happy to talk biases all the time. Thank you very much. Thank you.